So we're going to have Glenn, VP of Fiksu, and GM of Free My Apps, right? The discoverability app that Fiksu has. And we're going to discuss about all these terms. And especially, I think it's very interesting for indie developers, right? When they don't have huge budgets, how can they make sure that the return of investment is there? Thank you so much, Glenn.
Great. Everybody have a good time last night? Yes? No? My voice may be worse for wear, so. That's me in my robot suit, so just bear with me. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about the vicious battleground, which is known as the App Store and Google Play, as well as some various other app stores in the Android ecosystem. I know it's hard for you guys to develop for different devices and different app stores and get your message out there. So this is all about app promotion and marketing. So just a quick background on who Fiksu is. We're 200 people all over the world. We have 500 clients. We've promoted over 1,800 apps. We've generated 2 billion plus downloads in the ecosystem. So we are experts at consumer acquisition. And we also have our marketing platform, which makes over 3.7 billion requests per day. So we're buying on behalf of game companies all the time. This is a little bit about who we work with. So we have 240 game clients, and we work with 40 of the top 50 top grossing game publishers. We also work with indies, mid-sized developers, and a range of publishers. So as you can see from the slide, companies like Rovio, Capcom, Disney. We work with major brands as well. So it's not just games that we're experts at promoting. We work with Coke, Dunkin' Donuts, T-Mobile, Samsung, etc. So we'll look at the battleground and why it matters, how you break through, learning what works for you. And testing is essential when you're doing consumer acquisition to make sure you have the right mix of incent, non-incent, social. It's a very complex ecosystem. And then we'll just do a quick Q&A. So this is today's battleground. Sometimes it can be a barren wasteland if you're not doing consumer acquisition. There are phenomenal games out there that are never ever found in the App Store. A lot of companies will basically put all their efforts into game development, thinking my game is the best. I don't need to promote it. I'm going to use just PR to get my word out there. You'd be surprised how many people I have that say, oh, I'm just going to go get my TechCrunch article and go viral. Doesn't really work that way. So you do have to reserve some funds for user acquisition, and then also make sure your app has the right hooks in it to be very social and to basically amplify your consumer acquisition. So this is today's app battleground. You got 2 million apps in Google Play and the Apple App Store. The benefit of this, though, is that revenues in gaming continue to grow. So by 2017, it should be a $3.7 billion industry from in-game purchases, ad support, and total downloads. So there's big opportunities, but bigger challenges. The average user, some of you have probably seen the stat before, 40 apps or games on most devices, and people use religiously about 15 of those games or apps on their phone. 22% of all apps are downloaded and used only once, right? With the free-to-play model, that's the challenge. It's how do you engage the gamer? How do you get them to stay within your app? And how do you acquire the right gamer as well? 42% of game companies that have been interviewed feel that measurement and ROI are the biggest challenges. I'm sure you're all faced with that. Every discussion I had last night with virtually everyone is, I need this CPI to back out to this. So the great news about mobile gaming is that generally most of you are way ahead of the curve. We deal with app publishers all the time in m-commerce, big brands. We deal with agencies. They all buy from our marketing platform. And you guys are way ahead as far as understanding your user funnel and understanding how to acquire users and use the data to do it smarter and better. One of the challenges for games is cost-effective gamer acquisition at scale. There's a lot of companies out there. It's a very complex landscape. A lot of people say, yes, we can hit that CPI. but at what volume? And are they using just incent, or are they using non-incent? Because all of those different user acquisition channels have different values. And then how do you achieve your optimal App Store visibility? That's also important. Google Play is different from the Apple App Store. A lot of you probably already know how the ranking algorithms work. We can cover that a little bit as well. And it's a very complex ecosystem. It's growing day by day. It's a future slide, but a little preview. There's 943 ad tech companies out there. And I'm sure you guys all get calls from almost every one of them if they have good salespeople. And then the other thing is, how do you do automated user acquisition and optimization? Because it really is about leveraging your data, and really consumer acquisition is a data play. The next question is, how do you do UA? How do you not end up in the dark corners of the App Store? Some apps are never even downloaded when they're actually published. Here's a look recently at some December stats. This was education, music, lifestyle, and games. So you can see you guys are competing in the most accelerated category that there is. $8 billion of the $10 billion that was generated from the App Store last year was from games. So guess where all the in-app revenue is coming from? It's games, but you can see how competitive it is. To get top 25, you're looking at 25,000 installs just to reach that rank level. If you're looking at top 5, you're looking at 70,000 installs. And this is the US App Store as an example. It's very competitive, so know your markets, make sure you reserve user acquisition budget, and really take a smart approach using as much data as possible. Let's just talk a little bit about organic discovery through marketing. You do have to spend money to promote your game. There's some stats out there, some people say reserve just as much marketing budget as you had to build your game. Oftentimes it takes a lot more. But if you can get your ROI to work out, you should be spending as much as you can in the ecosystem to actually acquire users, retain them, engage them, and then make money off of their in-app purchases. And the other thing is, know your optimal rank and your optimal ROI. You know, we have a lot of game companies that come with big visions of like, here's my, my budget, it's kind of small, but I want to be #1 in the App Store. Well, that may not necessarily be the best approach, right? It's not just about rank. Rank is important. It does help you gain visibility, and more visibility gets you, as some people call it, organic lift or earned media. Agencies often use the word earned media. So really, it's just trying to weigh your cost-benefit and making sure you continue to look at the organics as part of your overall ROI, because that is essential when you're trying to have it back out. Time is your enemy and your friend in the App Store. So this is one thing I suggest to all publishers and developers that come to us, is avoid fleeting rank. Sorry. Show gamers that your game has staying power. Because when you hit like the top rank and you have only enough budget to get, let's say, top 10 in games, and then the next day your game is gone, what's the value there? You have users checking the App Store almost daily. So they want to see that your game has staying power, that it has good ratings, and time is key to that discoverability. It's not just about being #1. Don't just burst. A lot of companies come to us and say, I'm launching my game, I just want to burst. I'm going to use my entire budget on that. Well, it is a strategy to pursue, but the best strategy is to basically burst, sustain, and then optimize as you see the users coming in and how they're going through your user funnel. And then learn what works for you. Do a lot of testing. Definitely test traffic sources, test social. It's a very complex ecosystem, but it's very good to have an integrated approach. If you guys can all do this for a minute, that's mobile marketing. I don't see anybody doing this. No? Nobody understands it? Okay, awesome. So, 3 people, awesome. Gosh, in London I had like 50 people doing it, all right. So no, it's really an integrated approach. It's leverage your PR, leverage marketing, really have a tightly knit integrated acquisition program. Some of the best developers we work with involve the user acquisition manager or VP in the design of the game. That's really a smart approach. Don't just throw it over the wall. So if you're developing products today, don't just design a great game with no consumer acquisition in mind. Really have your user funnel solidified as you're working on the game. A lot of companies today, you may or may not do this, they actually hire psychologists because there are different points of euphoria when you hit the game, and different chemicals in the body are released as you're playing a game, and those are some of your key areas to either gain users to basically leverage Facebook social sharing or to buy an in-app purchase, etc. So there are some companies that keep a psychologist of gaming on staff. Last count. Here's the, I guess you can call that the throw-up slide of logos. It's 945 different ad tech players and growing. Now this does include mobile and web, but if you take a look at the mobile ecosystem, there's a slew of companies that you're probably getting calls from every day. So your question is, how do you make sense of all that ecosystem? How do you know how to buy smartly? There's a lot of traffic sources that will come and approach you. Make sure they have unique traffic. A lot of these companies will arbitrage from each other. So somebody may come to you and say, hey, I can offer you 10 billion impressions. What they may not tell you is they're buying 5 billion of that from other companies that you're trying to work with as well. So you end up bidding yourself up in the ecosystem and spending more on UA. This is a look at Fiksu spend on all the integrated ad networks that we have into our marketing platform from 2010 to 2014. What does this tell you? It tells you that traffic sources ebb and flow. Sometimes they have great quality. Sometimes they have different importance levels at different points of the ecosystem. So you can see in 2014, there's a couple key traffic sources that we use at Fiksu, and then we layer in other ad networks as part of the user acquisition program. Anyone want to guess what the big blue one is? $20 to you. Wait, I don't have $20. All right, yes. Yeah, Facebook is, 20 years is good for you. Facebook is one of our largest companies that we work with. We have a tight partnership with them. We're part of the API program, and we do basically automated optimization around Facebook. We also spend a considerable amount of money on what you'll find as programmatic buying through real-time bidding platforms. We actually have built our own. That is something that you should look for in the ecosystem. It helps drive your costs down. So the real benefit is arming yourself and understanding what the blend looks like. You should look at spending on incent. You should look at spending on just typical display, RTB, which is the real-time bidding platforms, which is basically an auction base of inventory and demand-side platform. So we're considered a demand-side platform. This is the blue screen of death. All right. Excuse me one second. That's what I get for talking with my hands. This is a good slide to take a look at because a lot of people don't understand the value of incentivized installs. It's all about how your ROI backs out. You should use a blend of everything. Here's a typical budget. We've done a lot of analysis. We have a labs team at Fiksu. This takes a look at non-incent spend versus we have our own incentivized network called Free My Apps. Basically, budget $10,000. Your cost per download on non-incent, $1.45. Cost for download on incentivized, 35 cents. Achieve almost 30,000 downloads with incent, about 7,000 downloads with non-incent. The percent that it convert to loyal users, we use basically number of times somebody opens an app as a loyal user statistic. 25% versus 10, which is actually very, very conservative. We see a lot higher conversions to loyal users through incentivized marketing. But you can see your cost per loyal user for a non-incent, $580 versus $350. So it really depends on how you actually want to spend in the ecosystem. We have game companies that will spend every day on incent at a very low CPI because it typically just backs out for them. They know that even if they're only getting a small percentage of users to become loyal from that game, they're making money from that game. So really take the right approach that you feel is best, but definitely test all sources and take a look at using incent and non-incent. This is just a quick look at the Fiksu mobile app marketing platform. So we basically are buying traffic. We have an attribution layer. You can bring your own to Fiksu if you use Has Offers or Kochava or any of the companies out there that do third-party tracking. We work very well with all of them. They're also integrated into our platform. And then we also have our own tracking and attribution. But this is key. It's the real key to doing optimization, because once you gather that data, you should be able to then buy smarter within different ad networks and then across different ad networks and social. And then make sure you have good transparent reporting so you see access to all the data and where your paid users are coming from and where your earned or organic users are coming from. Another thing to make sure before you launch is to have appropriate App Store optimization. I see a lot of game companies launch really fast and furious out of the gates with a V1, and they have not a lot of ratings. They don't have, they may have bugs in the game, et cetera. So make sure that the game gets tested. A lot of companies that we work with will use test markets like in Canada or Australia first before launching it in the US, just to work out the kinks in the game itself. Take advantage of your screenshots. Use callouts. Don't just put screenshots. Some of the best game publishers will actually put the features of the game on top of the screenshots as a bubble or a callout. Make it exciting for the user, because I pretty much can guarantee you, especially with the last one, description, people don't read anymore. Short is beautiful in the App Store. You may think your game is filled with tons of features, and it is, I'm sure, but don't have a description that's this long. Let them get to the screenshots, really engage with them. Google Play, you have the advantage of using video. In addition to screenshots, definitely leverage that. Video is very powerful. And then keywords, make sure you have the right keyword description for your game, your competitors' games, et cetera. And then also, if you're gonna do UA, leverage social within your app. I was speaking with a game company last night, and they were showing me their game. They said, oh, look, isn't this great? And I said, yeah, it's fantastic. Where are your social mechanics? And they said, well, what social mechanics do I need? And I said, well, if you're paying for a user to come into the game, how are you letting them share their game out? So social is the best way to stretch your consumer acquisition dollar. Don't Facebook gate your game, right? Don't make that the first experience somebody has. Let them play the game, let them complete a tutorial, let them register with Facebook at a later date to collect better data, and then be able to share easy with friends. So leverage social. Let gamers challenge their friends. That's the best way to basically increase your user base. At Free My Apps, we're a destination service it's an incentivized rewards-based network. We acquire 8,000 to 9,000 users a day, and 40% of those users come through social sharing. That's your most powerful way to spend your consumer acquisition dollar on the front end and let it go on the back end. Give people the ability to share out customized characters or cars that they build in the game through Twitter and through Facebook. There's a couple companies out there like Camcord and others that can do, you can basically record your gameplay and share your gameplay with your friends. Let them post high scores to Facebook and challenge their friends to beat it. That's a great way to basically virally create users for your game. And when you're measuring your consumer acquisition, you should keep those users into account, because every paid user you drive in can achieve a K factor and basically turn into 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 new gamers. So as a wrap up, fight for your spot in the App Store, use all the available weapons that you can, do a lot of testing, see what works for you. You can come to a company like Fiksu, which does have a programmatic demand-side platform. It's a marketing technology platform. That's what you should be leveraging, somebody that has access to big data. Our knowledge base, we collect 1 billion events every week, and that's important when you're trying to optimize your marketing programs. So whether you do it yourself, which a lot of companies will do, they'll have big UA teams. They come to us from a media buying perspective and an optimization perspective on Facebook and other sources, and really leverage the data. That's the most important thing, whether you're using a third-party tracking company, somebody like Fiksu, or others in the industry. We do have a lot of ebooks on marketing if you're new to the game at fiksu.com/ebooks. And if anybody would like to talk after, we do have a stand in the gold sponsor room. This is my 3rd Casual Connect, so it's great to be here. And But just open the floor to any quick questions that you may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Glenn. Do we have any questions from the audience?
We've moved mostly to a cost per install model on advertising in many cases. How many people are moving towards a cost per action model, like someone does this in the game?
That's an excellent question. A lot of companies come to us and talk just about CPI. That is important when you're trying to back out and get a good ROI. But you should look at different companies that can help drive engagement. You could look at companies like Session M, Keep is another one, which have like in-game rewards. You can also look at companies, sorry to plug this here, but Free My Apps, we have an engagement model. A lot of it's around rewards-based marketing. So you can actually encourage a user to complete a level and get them and reward them for doing so after downloading the game, or complete a tutorial, or some in-app action that happens within, by the way, about 2 to 3 minutes. And I would tell anybody this: if you are going to do a rewards-based, incentivized launch or push in the beginning of your marketing, which does help with App Store rank, et cetera, I would do it on a CPE or cost per engagement basis, because it's not that much more expensive. You can get the same amount of installs, but you can get the user deeper into the game.
Yeah, what I'm referring to is actual acquisition campaigns.
Yep.
Is anyone actually doing an acquisition campaign where you actually establish an event in the game and you'll pay them for every user it does that event?
Yes, so that's what I was explaining. So I probably do a good enough job. So Free My Apps, as a rewards-based network, we have millions of users that use the platform every day, and they actually will see an ad unit that'll say, download this game and complete the tutorial, and you earn this virtual currency, which you can then redeem on gift cards. So that platform, as an example, we've given rewarded about $16 million to our users in 2 years. And so it's a rewards-based ad network. So yes, engagement it's definitely an important part of the marketing mix.
With Facebook taking away the data from the advertising analytic packages, are you able to do attribution to Facebook ads still?
Yeah, so we're a Facebook API partner. You just really have to comply by their terms and conditions. So we've been doing that, as well as other companies in the ecosystem have. But it is something that, it's great working with them, and they have a lot of data. So it's really great to find lookalike audiences, and once you start doing the buying and the optimization. So yeah, there are some challenges for, I guess, a couple recent tracking companies. It was in the news yesterday, but you just have to abide by their terms and conditions.
Glenn, I have a question. Sorry.
Sorry, one last thing.
Yeah.
The ecosystem is really new, so there are a lot of companies that are kind of finding their way and learning about, what advertising on mobile really means and what attribution and data really means. So that will become something in the forefront in the future. You should definitely be careful on privacy, COPA regulations if you have a game and you're targeting, children under 13. There's a lot of things you have to look out for when you're doing your consumer acquisition. But if you find the right partner that can educate you along the way, that's a good thing to have.
From your experience, what's the average time frame that that developers use to calculate ROI?
The average time frame?
Yeah.
They usually will look at all the different, the game companies that we work with that do the best job look at every traffic source that they're buying. They also look at their organics or their earned media, and they can definitely figure it out within a few days, right? Like once they're looking at their data, a lot of companies will ask for the Android refer or the IDFA, and they'll match it up in their system. That is something that people look at. Another growing part of the space, which is very new and you guys should consider, is also when you have that data, is also engaging a user after they've potentially downloaded your app. So you'll hear things on retargeting. And the nice thing about retargeting with deep linking is that you can actually spend money on consumer acquisition, and you can actually take different segments, somebody that's done an in-app purchase, somebody that's never done an in-app purchase, right? And you can retarget them and find those users in the ecosystem and present them with an offer. So somebody that's done an in-app purchase before, you may want to present them with a sale on an in-app purchase for the game that they already have on their device. And it gets them to re-engage and basically making more money.
Yep. Any other questions? Yeah, we have one.
Facebook. Again, okay. So just interested to know where you show ads. What is the inventory that at the moment you use apart from Facebook via API?
I think the question is, what inventory do we buy? The one that performs the best is the app install ad unit at Facebook. That's the one we buy most of. And then really figuring out how to optimize not only finding the right audiences for your game, but also find somebody or work with a team that can optimize your creative, because that's also important, whatever ad unit that you're looking at. There's all sorts of small little tweaks you can do to a creative in a banner or an interstitial or a video ad that can make all the difference in the world on conversion rates. Anything else? Way in the back. All the way back, yeah.
Yeah, you had the term loyal user. How do you define a loyal user?
That's a great question. I think every game company has a different version of a loyal user or somebody that's going to generate long-term value for them. We had to pick one metric that we used in our dashboard. We defined a loyal user as somebody that opens the app at least 3 or more times. When you have somebody, like if you looked at that stat that said 20% of users open the app only once, we feel that somebody that's coming back multiple times into an app will become loyal, especially if you have good game mechanics and a good user flow funnel. But I think every game company really has to decide what a loyal user means to them, and then determine if the consumer acquisition they're spending on backs out to support that loyalty or that long-term value from that user. We actually, we used the Fiksu mobile marketing platform to actually promote Free My Apps. So we actually spend money every day on our own platform to do mobile advertising. And we figured out our long-term value of a user that happens to be part of our ad network. And then there's other different values you can apply to it as well. So with Free My Apps, we have 370,000 users on Twitter and about 560,000 Facebook fans. So that also has a value to us. So we actually look at the social value of that channel as well as what we have on Free My Apps. So it's a user community. So you really have to look kind of across all your UA approaches to see how it backs out for you.
Hi there, at the back.
Hello.
So you spoke about a loyal user in that presentation. But do you go on to talk about, or do you use that as your one and only measurement, or do you go on and measure basically the bottom line, the business objective, the ROI, revenue?
That's a really good question. So when we work with app and game publishers, depending on the type of events that they pass us, that's how we'll do our optimization. So we work with the game publisher, and if they say, look, I need to track this event in the app, and I need to optimize around that, because what's important to me is this person does the following or does this in-app purchase. That's when we start optimizing around what's important to them. So a loyal user is really determined as just a general metric in our dashboard when it comes to somebody that wants to only send us like launch events as an example. Because you can optimize around launch events, but we do a lot deeper optimization based around in-app activity. And that's really the right way to do your optimization and find your loyal users.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Because you said within your when you compared non-incentive to incentive, you were saying that your app was basically driving more loyal users. But loyal users is someone that opens an app. I download an app every day, but I might open it, but then I'll never use it again. So are you classing me as a loyal user just because I've opened it?
Well, as I said, we had to pick one just general metric to look at loyalty, and that's one that we decided to choose, which is number of opens. And you're right, sometimes, again, it's really up to the game to engage and retain them. We find that somebody that interacts with an app 3 or more times ends up being more of a long-term user from all the data that we've gathered. But again, it really depends on your game mechanics, it depends on your user funnel, and again, it's how you optimize your media spend around it. We're not, as I mentioned before, we recommend a totally integrated, blended approach to UA, which includes non-incent, incent, social. You should always have a PR program to go along with your user acquisition, because PR can be a very strong UA channel for you, especially if you have the right bloggers on your side. And it is a little hard to give press advanced look at your app unless you're on Android, right? iOS, they still only give you about 100 copies to distribute. Hopefully they'll increase that someday, because I think that's a real nice way to get somebody an advanced look at your game and make a blogger feel very special that they're getting like that, and pick top 10, right? And give them that advanced look and give them that private access. When I did consumer acquisition, so I haven't always been on just this side of the business. I've also done consumer acquisition for a very large social app. And when we launched our app, we actually sent out iPod touches to different journalists with the app preloaded. And that was a great, and with a FedEx package so they could send it back. And that was a great way to get a lot of journalists writing about the app when we launched. A lot of other companies too, great way to generate a kind of a rabid, loyal user base. A lot of companies will have a game 70% done, and they put their project up on Kickstarter and get 100,000 people donating $10 each to fund the game. And all of a sudden now you have 100,000 users that contributed $10 to complete your game, but they feel really loyal to you. And you've got this instant, install base that when you release the game, you basically can say to your audience that, help fund you, hey, game's available, go get it. And you have their email addresses, you can, send them guerrilla marketing packages, t-shirts, etc. It's a great additional way, which we've talked to a few game publishers, and they take that strategy as well. So it's another way to help launch your game in addition to general user acquisition.
Cool. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Sure. Thanks, guys.